بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Now to my Shia brothers, very quickly. We ignore the fact that we live in a materialistic society, and we ignore the fact that our values are now the values of society. It has become harder and harder for us to argue against the society's definition of what is just, what is not just, what is human rights, what is not human rights, what is freedom, what is not freedom. Truth, right, wrong, justice is now free for all. It is very individualistic. So at an individual level, we need to take our deen more seriously. We as Shias are sitting on a gold mine. We have the best leaders, we have the best guides in the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. How do we emulate them and come closer to them? We have an obligation to promote the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt and share it with others. There is a lot in our hands, we who are not ulama, that cannot be handled by one alim. There is the community leadership. There is the running of our madrasas. There is public media and PR. There is interaction with the government. There is building new institutions and new projects. One alim cannot do everything. But if we at an individual level can elevate the level of our taqwa, then the criteria on which we choose our leadership will change. We choose our leaders on the basis of who has the time. Whoever is self-employed, whoever is the good administrator, whoever has a social standing, and this is not bad, but it must be coupled with the issue of taqwa, so that the decisions that are made in guiding the community are based on this. Because as I mentioned, this is how Imam Ali chose his governors as well. He said, I will not choose those who have political experience first. I will choose those who have taqwa first. At a communal level, we need to hold on to the ulama. We have got this wrong. We seem to think that the alim has to hold on to. The Kaaba doesn't come to you, you go to the Kaaba. If the Imam was here today, he wouldn't come here, you would go to the Imam. The problem with the past leaders of Islam is that they saw Islam as something that was limited to the Middle East and the Arabs versus non-Arabs and resources of oil. They couldn't see that universality of Islam that would overtake all of humanity. We have the same problem. We are thinking 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I'm asking you to think 100 years, 500 years from now. Where do we see ourselves as a community if we cut ourselves from marja'iyat and begin doing our own thinking? Where do we see ourselves 500 years from now? It's like a boat. Think of it as a small boat we're in, and we're being pulled by a steamer. And that steamer is marja'iyat. And we come to one point and saying, you know what, they don't care about us. We're doing our own thing. We're managing fine. Let's cut ourselves loose. Initially, because we are riding in the waves of that steamer, we think we're doing fine, first 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Eventually, when that disappears out of sight, and we look around, and we're just bobbing in the ocean now, and there's just water all around, and sharks going around us, now we will scream for that steamer, but it'll be too late. What I'm hearing is that finding the truth in Islam is like buying a car. You can Google for the answer. And this disturbs me very, very much. Because if you search on Google, which car should I buy, and you end up buying the wrong car, the worst that will happen is you won't be comfortable. It won't provide your need. You might have to exchange it for a better one, or you might have to put up with it for 10 years before you buy another wrong car by mistake, which is what we all do. But if you're going to use Google to find something on which your salvation depends, and you pick the wrong answer, now your eternal life is at stake. I'm asking that instead of trying to determine right action based on values of the society, or instead of relying on our own arrogant sense of pseudo-intellectualism, that we show some humility to the institution of imama as it exists today in the form of marja'iyah. It's impossible for you to have the true context of Islamic values and principles as the person who has spent his entire life studying Islam. Furthermore, if we learn to be a little subservient to marja'iyah, it teaches us how to behave with a ma'soom imam as well. Look at the people who opposed Imam Hassan alayhi salam. They followed him, and then when he decided on the peace treaty, they started saying, it doesn't make sense to me. Now, instead of calling him Mu'izzul Mu'mineen, na'udhu billah, they call him Mudhillul Mu'mineen. And they started attacking him. I guarantee you, as a community, if we take this path forward, that we will rely on our own understanding and our own opinion, and it must make sense to me before I comply, we will do the same thing when Imam al-Mahdi returns.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد